5,000 new employees are needed within the federal government. But are you willing to take the job? This hiring effort is due to a demand in the Department of Veterans Affairs. But before they can start hiring, they are asking Congress for an additional $12 billion. This is to hire new employees, but also to keep up with the rising cost of prescription drugs. This is happening in the VHA, which previously were under a hiring pause. They pulled back a lot of their job offers. But due to the PACT Act that came out a couple of years ago, there's more of a demand for these healthcare providers. The PACT Act opened up care to almost 1 million additional veterans that were previously denied care. The VA has over 1,300 healthcare facilities across the country, which serve about 9 million veterans each year. Some states have more VA facilities than others. If you're looking at the top 3 states with the most VA clinics, number 1 is California with 103 VA facilities. Number 2 is Texas with 91 VA facilities, and number 3 is Florida with 83 facilities. Bottom line is the VA needs more facilities. And before you open up all these new facilities, you need to staff them. Everyone from the person checking your ID to the person that's at the gate to the doctor prescribing you the medication, they need to staff all those positions. This request is running contrary to a VA spending request proposing reducing 10,000 jobs next year. This is because the VA has seen its fastest growth in over 15 years. They hired tens of thousands of people over the last 18 months. But even with the pooling of job offers and scaling back hiring, VHA still grew its workforce by more than 2% this year. The VHA has shifted its focus from hiring to the productivity of its workers. Now, this is being called VA access sprints, which is another way of saying we're not going to hire any more, but we want our doctors to see more veterans. Are you seeing 6 veterans a day? Well, let's try to make that 9 or 10. So many people in Congress are upset with the VA for failing to budget the PACT Act requirements, and they're calling it the largest funding gap in the department's history. You have to remember that the VA is one of the largest federal agencies. It's number 3 after the DoD and the Postal Service. The VA has major sub-agencies such as the Veterans Health Administration, the Veterans Benefit Administration, National Cemetery Administration, and Office of Information Technology. The most jobs in the VA right now, they're in the VHA. There's over 3,000 open jobs on USAJobs.gov right now. You look at the VBA, they have 57 jobs. The NCA, the National Cemetery Administration, they only have 30 jobs. So what type of jobs could this new hiring push open up in the VHA? Well, let's take a look at USAJobs.gov to see what jobs are currently in demand. First, we have food service workers. There's 29 open jobs here. This job is not going to pay you very much. A lot of these positions are between $18 to $22 an hour. But they are under the direct hiring authority. So if you're in a position where you're frustrated because veterans are being selected over you, this position, it does not consider veterans preference at all. It even states that specific length of experience is not required. You just have to be able to prove that you can do this job. If you make it to the supervisor level, you can earn a little over $36 an hour for a job like this in Arizona. The food worker jobs like this is under the federal wage system. This is WG, blue collar. It's considered in the trades. But this one's in the competitive service. So you can move from WG to GS as long as you have the required experience. The important thing here is after 3 years, you would earn tenure in the competitive service. Next, we have social work with 150 open jobs. Social workers fall under the 0-100 job series, and there's a hard educational requirement. You need to have a master's degree in social work accredited by the CSWE, and you also have to be licensed within your state. Half of these jobs, they have a recruitment and a relocation incentive. So the VA is definitely motivated to hire more social workers. Most of the social worker jobs here are in the accepted service. So that's something you want to keep in mind when you're comparing competitive and accepted service. Okay, so then we have doctors and nurses, which make up over 800 open jobs. The vast majority of 0600 is medical, it's dental. Now, most of these jobs, they're going to require a degree or a certification, but not all of them. If you look at 0679, which is a medical support assistant, these jobs, they only require 6 months of experience of office or administrative type work. Also, you can look at the 0622, which is a medical supply aide and technician. This is another job series that does not have a hard educational requirement. There are also several administrative jobs in the 0300 job series, but most of these require you to already be in the federal government. Now, the filters I used for this search were open to the public. So that means all you need is a U.S. citizenship. You do not need to be a current government employee. You do not need to be a veteran or disabled or anything like that. Remember that the job opportunities at each one of these sub-agencies, they can be different. So if you hear someone say VA is not hiring, the question really is who in the VA is not hiring? Is it VBA? VBA is not hiring? Is it NCA or is it VHA? So you don't want to paint the entire agency by the same brush. The overall ranking of the VA has improved recently, and it currently ranks number 5 of 17 when it comes to large federal agencies, with a score of 71.8 out of 100. It has also seen a rise in employee satisfaction since the lows in 2017. Also, the VA has almost twice as many females as males in their workforce. I've personally worked for the VA for a couple of years and I had a great experience. But because the agency is so large, it's hard to take one person's word on how the agency is. Just like DOD, you could have somebody that works in Kansas and their experience would be completely different than somebody who works in Maryland. Same deal with the VA. Where I worked was in Washington, D.C., the headquarter building. If you know about Washington, D.C., the VA has about 3 or 4 main buildings down there. I was in the Office of Information Technology, and on my lunch break, I would cross the street and go to the gym. At the time, I thought all federal agencies had free gym access. Well, it turns out this was something specific to the VA, because once I transferred to a different federal agency, I realized most federal agencies make their employees pay a monthly amount to access the gym. I did notice that on pretty much every floor within that building, you had a lot of contractors. Now, this could be a good or bad thing depending on how you view contract support to federal agencies. But the number one thing that will determine your experience at the VA and pretty much any other federal agency is who's your supervisor? Who is your executive, the first SES? That individual will set the culture, will set the tone. And one of the ways that you find out about this person is during the interview. That individual is typically the hiring manager. You can kind of get a gauge for what their personality be like. One of the biggest complaints people have is once they enter into an agency, they're saying that it's toxic or, it doesn't agree with them or there's personality conflicts. The only time that you have in order to figure out if you're a good fit is during the interview. So ask those questions. A key takeaway I want you to understand is you do not need to be a veteran, a government employee, or know someone on the inside in order to get a federal government job. That happens with your resume. How your resume is written, how often are you applying, how focused is your job search, that will determine whether or not you get into the federal government or how long it'll actually take. But there's thousands of people that have this mindset of you have to know someone on the inside or the entire thing is rigged and I have no chance. The only time you don't have a chance is when you quit. When you decide, I'm not going to apply anymore, I'm going to go sit on the couch or do the same job I've been doing for the last 10 years, and I'm not going to look for a higher salary or a better work environment or better benefits. As long as you stay in the job search, there is a chance. And every time you improve your resume, you're increasing the probability of getting a referral, getting an interview, and ultimately getting that job offer. But if you're new to the federal government hiring process, you should really understand the entire process from the referral, the interview, the job offer, all of that. What goes into it? How long does it take? And if you're interested in that, I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.